You people disgust me. Always late, always whining, always making excuses. The crack of the slap splits the air. Michael reels backward, her cheeks stinging red. The diner goes silent, forks frozen midair, 20 customers holding their breath. A white manager just struck a black server. Jennifer's hand doesn't stop there. She grips Michael's wrist, twisting until the young mother gasps in pain. The tip jar had 70, now it's 40. Where's my money? I didn't take it, please. The shove slams Michael into the counter. Her 6-year-old daughter watches, eyes wide, as her mother pleads through tears. One call, and your babies are gone to foster care tonight. The room shrinks around Michael's sobs. She whispers, Please, my babies. Jennifer leans closer, her voice a blade. Close at midnight, back here at 4. Move before I call the cops. Michael stumbles toward the kitchen, wiping her face, humiliated before strangers who do nothing. But in the corner booth, a quiet black man shifts his phone. He's been recording for 15 minutes. Every slap, every threat, every word. And what he chooses to do in the next 60 seconds could destroy everything Jennifer believes she controls. Some people make fatal mistakes. They forget who's watching. 2 days earlier, Frankfurt, Germany. 2 a.m. Joseph sat alone in a hotel room, eyes locked on the glowing screen of his phone. A photo of his daughter filled the display, Jessica holding up a blue ribbon at her science fair. Timestamp, 3 hours ago, Detroit time. He had missed it. Again. He swiped to another picture. Jessica at 9 years old, standing in front of a bright new restaurant on opening day. New Dawn Diner. His dream. His mother by his side, glowing in her Sunday dress. 3 months later, she was gone. A heart attack while serving breakfast at a homeless shelter on a bitter January morning. 61 years old. She'd been in pain for weeks but kept working anyway, feeding those who had nothing. Her last words echoed in Joseph's ears even now. Baby, when you feed people, you feed them with dignity. Promise me that. He had built New Dawn on that promise. Detroit's answer. Detroit, the city that raised him, the city gutted by 2008 where jobs vanished and hope drained from block after block. Joseph had watched neighbors crumble under the weight of a single mistake. One bad break, one conviction, and society slammed the door shut. So he opened his own. New Dawn became a place for the invisible. Ex-offenders just released from prison, single mothers juggling gaps in their resumes with the cries of their children, people clawing their way back from zero. He gave them a uniform, a paycheck, and, above all, dignity. The local news ate it up. Soon came the profiles, then the conferences. From Boston to Berlin, Joseph stood on stages as the face of second-chance hiring, proof you could change lives and still turn a profit. He became an icon of conscious capitalism. But icons carry a price. More stages meant less time in Detroit, less time with Jessica, less time at the diner, less time protecting the people he'd sworn to stand beside. He told himself it was safe, because Jennifer was running things. Jennifer's rise. He remembered the day she walked into New Dawn, 2 garbage bags in hand, everything she owned, and a record that kept slamming doors in her face. Check fraud, 8 months homeless. No one would hire her. Joseph did. She washed dishes, showed up early, stayed late, learned the business inch by inch, prep, inventory, customer service, bookkeeping. 2 years later, she stood in his office crying as he handed her a promotion. No one ever believed in me before. I won't let you down, I promise. Another 2 years, and she was operations manager. Efficient, ruthless with costs. When Joseph began traveling, Jennifer stepped in without hesitation. Her emails always came with the same subject line. All green. Stay longer. Everything's running smoothly. Team's solid. Take another week in Europe if you want. We've got this. Jennifer's email was polished, reassuring. But Joseph's gut twisted all the same. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Check your people. The 5th message in 2 weeks. Always from a blocked line. Always the same 3 words. Every callback ended the same. Number disconnected. And now a red flag email from Marcus, his accountant. Sent 4 days ago. Labor costs up 18% in 6 months. Revenue's flat. Either payroll's broken or someone's stealing. Look at this now. He should have acted. But Berlin happened. Then Amsterdam. Then Frankfurt, where 400 executives stood clapping, proof that his message of second chances had gone global. Meanwhile, in Detroit, what was happening inside the diner that carried his mother's promise? Numbers don't lie. Joseph pulled up retention data. 6 months ago, annual turnover, 12%, exactly on par with the industry. Today, 41%. 4 out of 10 employees gone in half a year. Jennifer's reports called it normal churn. People moving on for personal reasons. Better opportunities, but 41% wasn't normal. It was hemorrhaging. Another text came through. Check your people before it's too late. Whoever was sending these messages wasn't a crank. They were scared, so scared they couldn't use their real name. Joseph made his choice. He opened his laptop, booked a red-eye to Detroit. No warnings, no heads up for Jennifer. He'd walk in cold and see what the place looked like when no one knew he was watching. Before shutting his wallet, his fingers brushed against a faded yellow card. His mother's handwriting. Her French toast recipe at the top. And at the bottom, the words that had built his entire dream. Feed people with dignity. If someone was poisoning that promise, he would find out himself. He texted Jennifer one last time. Conference extended 3 weeks. London next. You good? 10 seconds later, her reply. Always, boss. Don't worry about anything. But for the first time in 4 years, those words didn't reassure him. They chilled him. The numbers in the shadows, Detroit. 6:42 a.m. No trip home, no visit to Jessica. Joseph checked into a budget inn 3 blocks from New Dawn using a fake name. Room 217. Bare walls, stale carpet, a window overlooking a cracked parking lot. He spread papers across the bed. Bank statements, payroll records, employee files Marcus had sent overnight. The math screamed. 6 months ago, weekly payroll, $8,200. Now, $9,680, then extra $1,180 a week. Over half a year, nearly $40,000 unaccounted for. Revenues hadn't budged. Customer counts flat. Menu prices unchanged. So where was the money? He cross-referenced Jennifer's payroll reports with the digital schedules she emailed weekly. Every worker logged exactly 40 hours. No overtime, no anomalies. Too perfect, too clean. A glimpse of the truth. He thought of Thomas, a young line cook fresh off parole. Hard worker. Used to push 55, sometimes 60 hours a week because he loved the craft. Dreamed of culinary school, but now the schedule showed him capped neatly at 40. Why would Thomas stop? Joseph opened the latest digital schedule Jennifer had sent. Thomas. Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts. Exactly 40. Buzz. Another text. Unknown number. This time, a photo. Joseph's stomach dropped as the real scheduling board inside New Dawn's kitchen filled his screen. He zoomed in. Thomas. 56 hours, not 40. Shate Brooks. Close one night, open the next morning. Barely 6 hours to sleep. Shift after shift after shift. The neat digital schedules Jennifer had given him were lies. On the ground, his people were being wrung dry, worked to exhaustion, and only paid for 40 hours. Their time stolen. Their wages stolen. Their lives stolen. His hands shook. He typed back. Who are you? 3 dots blinked. Disappeared. Appeared again. Someone who believes in second chances for real. Come to the diner tomorrow. 7 a.m. Corner booth. Order toast. Watch the office door. You'll see everything. The anonymous text glared from Joseph's phone. His hands trembled as he typed back, Tell me your name. The reply came slowly. Not yet, but she threatened to call immigration on my sister. Said you'd believe her over me. I was terrified, but somebody has to stop her. She's Jennifer. Joseph's chest caved like it was crushed under concrete. Jennifer, the woman he had lifted from homelessness, the woman he had promoted, trusted, believed in when no one else would. Now she was breaking people instead of building them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? A minute of silence. Then the message appeared. She knows everything about everyone. She showed me the ICE tip line, said one call and Rosa's gone. She smiled when she said it. What was I supposed to do? Joseph stared at the screen until his eyes burned. What's your name? The line went dead. Number disconnected. 7 hours to go. The clock read 11:49 p.m. In just over 7 hours, he would step into his own diner disguised as a stranger. From his bag, he pulled the tools: a faded Detroit Tigers cap, an old jacket with a coffee stain on the sleeve, a pair of prescription sunglasses he'd never worn. Just enough to become invisible. He'd walk in, order toast, sit in the corner booth, and finally see what happened when no one knew Joseph was watching. Another buzz, another block number. Thank you for coming home, Mr. Turner. They needed you here. He typed back instantly. Who is this? No response. He set the alarm for 6 a.m., but sleep refused to come. Every time his eyes closed, he saw his mother in that hospital bed, clutching his hand, whispering, "Feed people with dignity, baby. Promise me." Tears blurred the old recipe card on the nightstand. Tomorrow would tell him if he had kept that promise, or if he had been funding a nightmare while collecting applause 6,000 miles away. God help whoever had turned New Dawn into something else. Undercover, 6:58 a.m. Detroit. Joseph pushed open the door of New Dawn Diner. Baseball cap pulled low. Coffee-stained jacket zipped tight. Sunglasses hiding tired eyes. Just another anonymous man grabbing breakfast before work. The bell above the door chimed. That sound had once meant home. Now it meant suspicion. The diner was half full. Construction crews at the window table, 2 nurses in rumpled scrubs, commuters hunched over coffee. No one looked up as he slipped in. The smell hit him. Bacon, coffee, grease. But something was missing. The warm scent of cinnamon, his mother's French toast. The smell that had built this place into more than a diner. Gone. He slid into the corner booth. The vinyl squeaked. From here, he had a clear line of sight. The counter, the kitchen, and Jennifer's office door. The first glimpse. A server approached. Michael. Her file said 29. She looked closer to 40. Dark circles hung under her eyes, etched deep like bruises that never healed. Her fingers clutched the order pad so tightly her knuckles whitened. Morning, she said, her voice flat, practiced. Not joy, not welcome, just survival. Coffee, wheat toast, butter on the side. She scribbled it down, her hand trembling. The pen stuttered across the paper. Coming right up. Joseph watched her at the coffee station, watched the shake in her hand as she poured, watched the splash of liquid slosh over the rim, watched her wipe the saucer quickly, mechanically. The muscle memory of someone who had cleaned up her mistakes 1,000 times under someone else's glare. She returned, setting the cup down carefully. Toast will be right out. Thank you. Her voice was polite, but her eyes were tired. So very tired. Joseph sipped the bitter coffee and stared across the room. In minutes, he would find out if dignity had been preserved, or if it had been stolen from the very people he had sworn to protect. Order toast. Watch the office door. You'll see everything. The anonymous text still pulsed in Joseph's mind. He could feel his chest tightening as if a hand pressed down hard against his ribs. Jennifer. The woman he had rescued from the edge of the streets. The woman he had trusted with the diner, with his people, with his promise. Now, the same woman was using that trust as a weapon. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He had typed back the night before. The reply had taken a long, aching minute to arrive. Because she knows everything. She knows my sister's undocumented. She showed me the ICE hotline on her phone. She smiled when she said it. One call and Rosa's gone. What was I supposed to do? Joseph's eyes had burned as he stared at those words. His fingers had tapped back one desperate question. What's your name? But the line had already gone dead. The longest night, 11:49 p.m. The math was brutal. In just over 7 hours, he would walk into his own diner disguised as a stranger. He laid the items out carefully on the bedspread. A faded Detroit Tigers cap, An old jacket with a coffee stain down one sleeve. A pair of prescription sunglasses he never wore. The tools of invisibility. He would sit in the corner booth, order toast, and finally see what his diner looked like when he wasn't there. Another buzz, another number. "Thank you for coming home, Mr. Turner. They needed you here." "Who is this?" he typed. No answer. Sleep came in fragments, broken by images of his mother gripping his hand in that hospital bed. Her voice whispering through the dark. "Feed people with dignity, baby. Promise me." The old recipe card lay on the nightstand. Cinnamon stains, fading ink, her handwriting blurred through tears he hadn't realized were falling. Tomorrow would show him whether he had honored her or betrayed her without even knowing it, and God help whoever had turned New Dawn into something else. The return, 6:58 a.m. The bell above the door chimed as Joseph walked back into New Dawn, but this time no one knew his name. Baseball cap pulled low, jacket zipped, sunglasses hiding his eyes from the rising sun. Just another worn-out customer grabbing breakfast before work. The sound of the bell used to mean home. Now it sounded like an alarm. The diner was half full. Construction crews hunched over plates at the window table, 2 nurses in scrubs fighting yawns, commuters scrolling their phones beside cups of burnt coffee. No one looked up as Joseph entered. The smell hit him instantly. Coffee, bacon, grease, toast. But not the smell that had once defined this place. The cinnamon, his mother's French toast. Gone, as if someone had erased her from the air itself. He slid into the corner booth. The vinyl seat squeaked under his weight. From here, he had a perfect view of the counter, the kitchen doors swinging back and forth, and the office door where Jennifer held court. A face of exhaustion. A server approached. Michael. Her file had said 29. Her face told another story. Hollow eyes carved with dark circles. Shoulders hunched as if every shift was a weight she could never put down. Her hand gripped the order pad so tight her knuckles had gone bone white. "Morning," she said. The word came out flat, automatic. Professional autopilot. Joseph kept his voice low. "Coffee, wheat toast, butter on the side." She wrote it down, her hand trembling just enough to make the pen stutter across the page. "Coming right up." He watched her at the coffee station, watched the shake in her wrist as she poured, the hot liquid splashing over the rim. Watched her wipe the saucer clean, quick and practiced, the reflex of someone who had been punished for every small mistake 1,000 times. When she returned, she placed the cup down with careful precision. "Toast will be right out, thank you." Her words were polite, but her eyes told the truth. Tired. Hollow. Cracked wide with silent suffering. Joseph lifted the cup, sipped the bitter coffee, and stared across the room. In minutes, he would learn whether New Dawn was still the place he had promised his mother it would be, or whether it had become the very thing he had built it to fight against. Joseph sipped the coffee, bitter and burnt, and set the cup down. His eyes never left Jennifer's office door. The diner hummed with the dull rhythm of survival. Plates clattering, the hiss of the griddle, voices low and tired. But beneath it all, there was something else. A tension, a silence threaded through every movement of the staff. The kitchen door swung open. Jennifer stepped out. She moved like a general on inspection, sharp, precise, her gaze cutting across the room. The servers stiffened as if bracing for impact. Joseph felt his jaw tighten. Jennifer's eyes landed on Michael. "Brooks," she barked. "Order's been sitting 10 minutes. You think customers are paying to watch you stroll around?" Michael flinched, rushed to the counter, and grabbed the plate. The toast wobbled as she carried it, her hands still trembling. She set it in front of Joseph with quiet apology. Jennifer was already behind her. She snatched the order pad from Michael's apron, flipping through the scribbled notes. "What the hell is this? Chicken scratch? If you can't write a ticket, you can't work here." She shoved the pad back into Michael's chest. The young woman stumbled, her face flushing red, lips pressed tight to hold back tears. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Joseph's pulse pounded in his ears. He clenched his fists under the table, forcing himself to stay still, to keep watching. The breaking point. A busboy barely out of high school hurried past with a tray of dirty dishes. Jennifer snapped her fingers. "Hey, Matthew, tables don't clear themselves. Move faster." "Yes, ma'am," he muttered, head down. She leaned closer, voice low but sharp. "Ma'am, don't ma'am me. You're lucky I don't call ICE right now." The boy froze. His knuckles went white around the tray. Joseph caught it, the flash of fear in his eyes. The message sender's words slammed back into his mind. She threatened to call immigration on my sister. Now he was watching her do it. The silent witness. Jennifer turned, scanning the room. For one long second, Joseph thought her eyes might catch on him, but they slid past. She didn't recognize the man in the stained jacket, hidden behind cheap sunglasses. The disguise was holding. He lifted the toast, dry and flavorless, chewing slowly as he kept his gaze fixed on the stage playing out in front of him. Every insult, every threat, every life she was breaking. He had built New Dawn to be a place of dignity, and now it was something else entirely. She almost smiled. Almost. Just a flicker around Jennifer's mouth before the mask snapped back into place. From the kitchen, the ticket printer buzzed. Orders piling up. The morning rush had begun. Joseph checked his watch. 7:03 a.m. The office door opened. Jennifer emerged, crisp navy blazer, white blouse, hair pulled so tight it looked like it might crack. Clipboard in hand. She scanned the room with practiced precision, her eyes grazing over Joseph without pause. To her, he was nobody. Just another customer. She walked straight to the counter where Michael was refilling a coffee pot. "Michael, front now." The young woman froze. Shoulders stiffened. She set the pot down with careful hands. "Yes, ma'am." "Office." "Yes, ma'am. Just let me—" "Now, Michael." The two disappeared inside. The door swung half shut but didn't catch. Joseph shifted in his booth, angling his head just enough to see through the narrow gap. Behind the door, Jennifer sat behind the desk, a queen on her throne. Michael stood in front of her, small and shrinking. "You're closing tonight at 11, back at 4 next a.m., Jennifer said, her voice smooth and poisonous. 5 hours between shifts. Manage your time better." Michael's body folded in on itself, arms crossed tight like she was trying to disappear. "Oh, and your daughter's school called again," Jennifer added, her smile a knife. "Lunch money, 3 weeks unpaid. Maybe if you were more responsible." Joseph's mug froze halfway to his lips. Jennifer leaned forward. 2 hours docked for yesterday's tardiness. "And if I hear one more complaint from that school, we'll discuss whether this job still fits someone with your situation." Through the crack, Joseph saw it, the exact second Michael's spirit snapped. Her lips parted, her voice barely audible. "Yes, ma'am." 2 words, a whisper of surrender. It stopped him cold. That was the sound of his mother's promise shattering. Feed people with dignity. Jennifer patted Michael's shoulder like she was doing her a kindness. "Mr. Turner built this place for people willing to work hard. You do appreciate your second chance, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Get back to work." Michael walked out, eyes red but dry. She'd learned not to cry where Jennifer could see. Joseph's hands clenched around the coffee mug until his knuckles ached. This was what happened in his absence. 18 months away, and dignity had been drained out of this place like blood from a wound. The recipe betrayed. 5 minutes later, his toast arrived. Thomas set the plate down. Lean, tattooed forearms, burn scars from years on the line. Joseph remembered him from 2 years ago, fresh out of prison, beaming in his hiring photo. "Wheat toast, butter on the side," Thomas said. "Anything else?" "This looks good. Hey, do you make the French toast here?" Thomas's face flickered. Pride, then resignation. "Yeah, when we've got the ingredients. Kitchen's been running lean." "I heard this place was famous for it. Owner's mother had a special recipe." Thomas glanced toward the office door, lowered his voice. "We don't use that recipe anymore. Manager changed suppliers about 6 months ago. Cheaper bread, margarine instead of butter. No cinnamon. Saves money, she says. Not my call." Something cracked deep inside Joseph's chest. The one thing he had begged Jennifer to protect, his mother's recipe, her legacy, replaced for profit margins. Thanks, Joseph managed, his throat tight. Thomas nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. Joseph bit into the toast. Dry, bland, wrong. He pulled the faded recipe card from his pocket, sliding it under the table. Thick-cut challah, real butter, cinnamon, vanilla, nutmeg. Feed people with dignity. This toast had no dignity, only betrayal disguised as breakfast. At the counter, Jennifer was counting the tip jar. Joseph's eyes narrowed as Jennifer leaned over the counter, stacking bills with meticulous care. She jotted one figure into a pocket notebook, then scribbled a different total into the official ledger. With a sleight of hand, 3 crisp 20s slid into her jacket pocket. $60 gone before anyone could blink. At table 4, a customer slipped a 5 under their plate and walked out. Michael cleared the dishes, spotted the bill, and tucked it into her apron like someone tucking away a prayer. For a second, her shoulders lifted, an almost invisible breath of relief. And then Jennifer was there. Did they leave anything? Michael's face emptied, eyes fixed on the floor. $5, ma'am. Tip pool. You know the rules. Slowly, with fingers that trembled, Michael pulled the bill from her apron and handed it over. Jennifer's lips curled. That's better. Teamwork. She walked away smiling, adding the 5 to her private stash. Joseph's stomach clenched. Jennifer wasn't just skimming, she was bleeding the very people who lived on $2.35 an hour before tips. The humiliation. The kitchen door banged open. Thomas stepped out, towel tossed over one shoulder, his tattoos catching the light. He froze when he saw Jennifer. Thomas, she said smoothly. Come here. He approached, eyes darting nervously around the room. You had questions about last week's paycheck? Thomas hesitated. Could we talk in private? Her smile was sweet poison. No need. You worked 40 hours, you were paid for 40. Problem? The schedule had me down for 52, he said carefully. I thought maybe payroll. She cut him off. The time clock says 40. Are you suggesting the clock is wrong? No, ma'am. I just thought, because if the clock is wrong, I'll need to pull every record for the past 6 months, including the week you called in sick but were posting roller coaster selfies from Cedar Point. Laughter rippled faintly from a nearby table. Thomas's cheeks flushed, his jaw tight. Jennifer tilted her head. Do you want me to investigate, Thomas, or do you trust that the clock is accurate? His face drained of color. The clock is accurate, ma'am. Good. And I spoke to your parole officer. I told him you were reliable. I'd hate to revise that report. His fists balled, then slowly unclenched. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Back to work. Thomas disappeared into the kitchen, shoulders sagging. Joseph's throat burned. This wasn't management. This was captivity. Chains forged from parole officers, criminal records, and fear. The child. The bell above the door jingled. A tiny girl entered, her backpack hanging low, a pink jacket missing a button. Mommy, she called, eyes shining. Michael froze, then rushed forward. Terror flashed across her face. Kathy, sweetheart, what are you doing here? You forgot lunch money. Mrs. Patterson said I had to find you before school. Jennifer's heels clicked across the tile. This your daughter, Michael? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Your child wandering into the diner during the breakfast rush? This is not a daycare. I know, ma'am. I just didn't. You're always late, and now this? Your personal life is undermining your professional duties. Michael knelt quickly, fumbling for her wallet. She opened it. 6 crumpled dollars. That was all. She pressed them into Kathy's hand. Lunch for today and tomorrow. Mommy will bring more Friday. But Mommy, what about you? I'll eat here, Michael lied, forcing a smile. Now hurry, be good. I love you. The hug lasted 3 seconds before Michael pushed her gently away. Go on, baby. You'll be late. The door shut behind her daughter. Michael stood staring at the empty wallet like it was a wound. Jennifer leaned close, whispering where no one else could hear. Get it together or I'll mark this down as another sign of instability. And you and I both know your caseworker is paying attention. Yes, ma'am. Michael walked toward the bathroom, shoulders folded, a ghost of herself. The signal Joseph's phone buzzed. A text flashed on the screen. Mr. Turner. Table 12. I know who you are. We need to talk. He looked up. A woman in her early 30s sat at table 12, dark hair pulled back, new dawn apron crisp against her uniform. Sandra. She caught his eye, then rose, walking toward the back hallway. She glanced over her shoulder once, just long enough to signal. Joseph dropped cash on the table and followed. The hallway was narrow, sour with the smell of bleach and stale grease. The pulse in his neck hammered. The charade was over. Someone had recognized him. Sandra was waiting by the fire exit, half hidden in the shadows. You're him, she whispered. You're Joseph. It wasn't a question. Joseph stiffened. How do you know? I've seen your photo in the office, and you've been sitting in that booth, watching, not eating. You're the one getting the texts, aren't you? He gave a single nod. Her eyes shimmered. That was me. I'm sorry I didn't use my name. I was terrified. She threatened me. Threatened my sister. Tell me. Sandra's voice cracked as she spoke. Rosa lives with me. She doesn't have papers. Jennifer found out 6 months ago. One day she pulled up the ICE hotline on her phone, showed it to me and said, "One call and your sister's gone in 2 days." And then she smiled. Joseph felt his stomach collapse. How long has this been happening? Since you started traveling more, about 14 months. It began small. Extra shifts, an hour shaved here and there. But then it grew. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. A screenshot glowed in the dim light. She sells our information, Sandra said bitterly. Names, addresses, phone numbers, $50 each to payday loan sharks. I got 12 spam calls last week from places I never contacted. Joseph stared at the image. A spreadsheet, employee names, contact info, a column labeled referral fee, $50. It's not just me, Sandra pressed. It's everyone, Michael, Thomas, all of us. She knows our secrets and uses them against us every day. Why didn't anyone come to me? Sandra's face hardened. 2 people tried. 6 months ago. Jennifer found out. One was fired the next day for stealing. The other had their hours cut from 40 to 12. They both quit within a week. Joseph's throat tightened. How many hours did you work last week? 54, paid for 40. And Michael? 68, paid for 40. Close open shifts 3 weeks in a row. Maybe 5 hours of sleep between them. Sandra's voice broke. I found her crying in the walk-in freezer last week. Joseph's hands trembled. His pulse roared in his ears. I need to see Jennifer's office. Sandra reached into her pocket and pressed a key into his palm. I copied it months ago. I've been too afraid to use it. Bottom drawer of her desk, 2 sets of time cards, a ledger with everything. When? Tonight, after close. I'll let you in through the back. She'll know eventually, but I don't care anymore. Somebody has to stop her, and you're the only one who can. Just then, Michael stepped out of the restroom and spotted them. Her eyes widened. Go, Sandra hissed, before Jennifer notices. Joseph adjusted his cap, slid his sunglasses on, and walked briskly back through the dining room. Jennifer was at the register, head bent over receipts. She didn't even glance his way as he pushed through the door. Outside, the morning sun hit him like a spotlight. The street looked too normal, too calm. Joseph sat in his car, hands locked around the steering wheel. The recipe card lay on the dashboard, his mother's script glowing in the sunlight. Feed people with dignity. He had broken that promise by being absent, but tonight he would fix it. Tonight he would gather proof, and tomorrow Jennifer would learn what happens when you turn someone's legacy into a weapon. The night raid. The diner closed at 11. Joseph waited in his car 3 blocks away, watching the clock tick. At 11:43 p.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Sandra. Back door. Now. He drove to the alley behind New Dawn. The streetlight above the dumpster was dead, leaving the corner in darkness. Sandra stood by the emergency exit, door wedged open with a brick. "She left 10 minutes ago," Sandra whispered. "We've got maybe half an hour before the cleaning crew comes." Joseph followed her inside. The kitchen was deserted, lit only by the dull red glow of the exit signs. The smell of cold grease and burnt coffee clung to the air. They reached Jennifer's office. The door was locked. Sandra produced the copied key. "She keeps everything in the bottom drawer," she said, her voice low. The key slid into the lock. A click. Joseph lowered himself into the chair behind Jennifer's desk. He pulled the drawer open. 2 neat stacks of time cards stared back at him. 2 stacks sat side by side in the drawer. One stamped payroll, the other stamped actual. Joseph's heart hammered as he began flipping cards. Michael, official record, 40 hours. Actual worked, 68. 28 stolen. Sandra, payroll, 40. Actual, 54. 14 stolen. Thomas, payroll, 40. Actual, 52. 12 stolen. Card after card. Name after name. Every single employee, 2 versions of reality. 20, 30 hours stripped from each worker every week. Jennifer hadn't just been cutting corners. She'd been pocketing lives. Joseph pulled out his phone and began snapping photo after photo. "There's more," Sandra whispered. She reached deeper into the drawer and slid out a black composition book. Joseph opened it. Jennifer's handwriting stared back at him. Every page was a record of theft, written in neat, careful lines. Week of March, Ithroda 9. Michael, 68 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, 420. Leverage, custody case, outstanding tickets. Sandra, 54 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, 294. Leverage, sister undocumented. Thomas, 52 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, $240. Leverage, parole officer. Joseph's stomach turned. 18 months of entries, 14 employees. Each week, hundreds skimmed. Added up, more than $300,000 stolen. But money wasn't the only theft. Jennifer had built a weapon. She'd written down their weaknesses: deportation, jail, children taken away, and turned them into shackles. The safety net of lies. Sandra pulled another folder from the drawer. The tab read CYA. Inside were forged signatures, fake complaints, fabricated paperwork, all designed to create a trail to prove guilt if anyone ever questioned her. At the bottom, Joseph froze. A document prepared 2 weeks ago, a sexual harassment complaint against him. The signature at the bottom read, Michael. It was fake. Jennifer had been preparing to burn him, too. Joseph snapped every page, every file, his phone filled with evidence. "There's more," Sandra said again, moving to Jennifer's computer. "You know the password?" he asked. "I watched her type it." The screen lit up. Vendor contracts, ingredient orders. Jennifer had downgraded every supplier to the cheapest available. Margarine for butter, white bread for challah, cinnamon erased from the French toast recipe. Yet Joseph was still billed at premium rates. The difference? Hundreds a month funneled into Jennifer's pocket. Another folder, a spreadsheet. Names, addresses, social security numbers. A column labeled referral fee. $50 per employee. Jennifer had sold them all to payday loan companies like cattle at auction. Joseph's phone buzzed. 12:14 a.m. Sandra's voice was urgent. "We have to go. The cleaning crew comes at 1. Joseph took one final photo, then carefully slid everything back. Time card stacked, computer shut down, drawer locked. They slipped back into the kitchen through the emergency door. Sandra removed the brick and let it shut behind them. The decision. "What are you going to do?" Sandra asked, her voice trembling. Joseph stared down at his phone, at the thousands of images that now lived in its memory. "Tomorrow morning, I'm walking through that front door. No disguise, no excuses, and I'm calling everyone together." Sandra's eyes widened. "In front of the whole staff?" "Yes," Joseph said flatly. "She humiliated them in public, threatened them in public. She'll answer in public." She'll deny everything. He held up the phone. Not this time. I have proof. Every card, every ledger, every lie in her own handwriting. For the first time in months, Sandra smiled. A small, fragile thing. Then I'll be there. Good, Joseph said, because after tomorrow, this place will never be the same. The morning after. Joseph sat behind the wheel of his car as dawn broke. The recipe card lay on the dashboard, his mother's handwriting glowing in the early light. Feed people with dignity. He whispered to the empty car, I'll keep the promise this time. 7 hours later, at 7:15 a.m., Joseph walked into New Dawn Diner. No baseball cap, no sunglasses, no disguise, just a suit, a tie, and a phone full of truth. The bell above the door chimed. The morning rush froze. Forks hung in midair. Conversation stopped. And for the first time in 18 months, everyone looked up. 2 piles. One marked payroll, the other marked actual. Joseph's pulse thudded as he laid them side by side. Michael, paid 40, worked 68, 28 hours erased. Sandra, paid 40, worked 54, 14 hours vanished. Thomas, paid 40, worked 52, 12 hours gone. Card after card, name after name. Every employee with 2 histories, the one Jennifer showed him and the one she stole. 20 to 30 hours disappeared each week, funneled straight into her pocket. Joseph lifted his phone and began snapping photos. Proof, line by line. There's more, Sandra whispered, her voice barely steady. From the drawer she drew a battered black notebook. Joseph opened it and felt the breath leave his chest. Jennifer's handwriting, page after page, neat and deliberate. March 3 to 9th. Michael, 68 hours worked, 40 paid, profit, $420. Pressure point, custody case, unpaid tickets. Sandra, 54 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, $294. Pressure point, undocumented sister. Thomas, 52 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, $240. Pressure point, parole officer. Joseph flipped faster. The pattern repeated week after week for 18 months. 14 names. $300,000 skimmed. But worse than the theft was the leverage. Deportation, arrest, losing children. Jennifer had turned fear into currency. The insurance file. Sandra reached back into the drawer, this time producing a folder labeled CYA. Inside, forged signatures, faked complaints, backdated reports, all designed to create a trail if anyone ever challenged her. At the bottom of the stack, Joseph froze. A draft complaint, accusing him. Sexual harassment, 2 weeks old. Michael's name scrawled at the bottom, only it wasn't her handwriting. Jennifer had been preparing to bury him too. Joseph's hands shook as he photographed every page. Look at this, Sandra urged. She moved to the computer, typed in a password. You know it, he asked. I memorized it the day I saw her type it in. The monitor glowed to life. Vendor contracts. Jennifer had swapped every supplier to the cheapest possible option, then continued billing Joseph for premium goods. Even his mother's French toast recipe had been gutted. Challah replaced with white bread, real butter swapped for margarine, cinnamon erased. She'd pocketed the difference, hundreds a month. Sandra opened another folder. A spreadsheet appeared. Employee names, addresses, social security numbers. A column labeled referral fee. Jennifer had sold their identities to payday loan companies, $50 a head. Joseph's phone buzzed. 12:14 a.m. Sandra glanced toward the door. We're out of time. The cleaners come at 1. Joseph captured one last image, then carefully replaced everything. Time cards stacked neatly. Drawer shut. Lock turned. Together they slipped back through the silent kitchen, out the emergency exit. Sandra removed the brick and let the door thud shut. The resolve. What will you do now? Sandra asked softly. Joseph lifted his phone, heavy with evidence. Tomorrow morning, I walk in through the front. No hat, no glasses, no hiding. I call a meeting. Sandra's eyes widened. In front of everyone? She humiliated them in public, threatened them in public. She'll answer in public. She'll deny it. Joseph raised the phone. Not with this. Time cards, ledgers, forged complaints, her own handwriting. For the first time in months, Sandra smiled. Then I'll stand beside you. Good, Joseph said, because after tomorrow, New Dawn will finally live up to its name. The return. Joseph drove away, his mother's recipe card on the dashboard catching the glow of the streetlights. Feed people with dignity. The words burned into him. 7 hours later, at 7:15 a.m., he walked back into New Dawn. Not disguised this time, not invisible. A suit, a tie, a phone filled with proof. The bell above the door rang. The clatter of plates stopped. Conversation stalled. Forks hovered in midair, and every head in the diner turned toward him. Michael was pouring coffee at table 3 when she saw him. Her hands went slack. The pot slipped, shattering across the tile, scalding liquid running like veins across the floor. I'm sorry, she stammered, already crouching to clean the mess. Leave it, Joseph said gently. His voice carried through the room. It's okay. From the kitchen pass-through, Thomas froze, eyes widening. At the dish station, Sandra looked up, met Joseph's gaze, and gave a quick, steady nod. The office door swung open. Jennifer stepped out, clipboard tucked tight against her chest. Navy blazer. Hair pulled so tight it looked like a mask. Her smile was polished, but her eyes sharpened the way glass cuts. Well, she said brightly, what a wonderful surprise. Mr. Turner, I didn't know you were back. Jennifer. Joseph's voice cut across the diner like a blade. Gather the staff, all of them, right now. Her smile flickered. Is something wrong? Now. The steel in his tone made her hesitate. Finally, she turned toward the kitchen. Thomas, Sandra, front of house, everyone out here. One by one, they emerged. Thomas with damp hands, Sandra drying hers on a towel, 2 servers, the prep cook, the dishwasher. They lined up by the counter like soldiers who'd been beaten into silence. Customers didn't leave. They leaned forward instead, forks suspended, coffee cooling. The diner was hushed, waiting. The reckoning begins. Joseph stepped into the center of the room. His voice was steady but heavy. My name is Joseph. I own this place. He looked at Michael, standing pale by the broken coffee pot. 2 days ago, I sat in that booth disguised and I watched. What I saw broke me, and today we set it right. He lifted his phone, then turned back to Michael. Michael, come here, please. She hesitated, hands trembling. He softened his tone. You're not in trouble. You're safe here. Do you understand? She nodded, tears brimming. How many hours did you work last week? Her answer was a whisper. 68, sir. And how many were you paid for? Her voice cracked. 40. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. Joseph turned to Thomas. Same question. Thomas's jaw clenched. 52, sir. Paid for 40. Sandra. She stepped forward. 54 worked. 40 paid. Joseph looked at Jennifer. She gripped the clipboard so tightly her knuckles had gone bloodless. The ledger of crimes. According to the payroll reports you've been sending me, Joseph said, holding up his phone, every single person here works exactly 40 hours. No overtime, no exceptions. He swiped his screen, then turned it toward the staff. But last night I found something in your office. 2 sets of time cards. One marked payroll, one marked actual. Want to explain the difference? Jennifer opened her mouth, closed it. Mr. Turner, there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Joseph's voice sliced the air. Is that what we're calling theft? He scrolled to another photo. Here, your handwriting, your ledger. He read aloud. Michael, 68 hours worked, 40 paid. Profit, $420. Note, leverage, bench warrant, custody case. Michael made a sound, small and breaking like glass fracturing. Joseph's voice grew harsher. You wrote it all down, every stolen dollar, every weapon you used, Sandra's undocumented sister, Thomas's parole officer, You turned their lives into leverage. Jennifer's face drained of color. You had no right to go through my desk. I own the building. I own the desk, Joseph said, voice steady as stone. And here's what I found. $300,000. That's what you stole from the people who gave you their trust. The people I hired to be protected, not destroyed. He looked at them, Michael, Sandra, Thomas, and his voice cracked. I'm sorry, I should have been here. I failed you. Then he turned back to Jennifer. His voice hardened again. You're done. Effective immediately. You have 5 minutes to leave. The mask shatters. Jennifer's composure cracked. Her face twisted. You can't do this. I have rights. I'll sue you for wrongful termination. Joseph raised his phone. I have 18 months of records, forged signatures, proof you sold employees' identities to payday loan sharks, and one more thing. He paused. A fake sexual harassment complaint, dated 2 weeks ago, with Michael's name forged at the bottom. Your plan to destroy me if I ever uncovered the truth. Jennifer's skin went gray. Leave now, Joseph said quietly, or I call the police. Your choice. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then slowly, she set her clipboard on the counter, shrugged off her blazer, and laid it down. You self-righteous hypocrite, she hissed. You left this place. You abandoned it. I kept it alive while you stood on stages pretending to be a savior. You kept it alive by enslaving the very people I built it to save, Joseph replied. His voice thundered across the silent diner. Get out. Jennifer turned, scanning the faces of the employees she had crushed for years, then the customers who had seen it all unfold. And for the first time, no one looked away. No one dared meet her eyes. Jennifer strode toward the door, shoulders squared, clipboard abandoned on the counter. At the threshold, she spun back. Her voice dripped with venom. You gave me a second chance, Joseph. Look what it turned into. Your little redemption project? It's a fantasy. People like us never change. Joseph's reply was iron. You're wrong. People can change. You just chose not to. The bell above the door chimed as she stepped into the street. The sound echoed like a final gavel. For a long moment, the diner was silent. Then Michael broke, her body racked by sobs she had been holding back for months. Sandra rushed forward, wrapping her arms around her. Thomas stood motionless, fists clenched, chest heaving. Joseph looked at them all, his voice cracked but carried. I failed you, but starting today, everything changes. An unexpected ally. From table 6, a woman rose, pulling a business card from her purse. I'm a labor attorney, she said, walking toward Michael. I heard everything. If you want to press charges, I'll represent you, free of charge. Michael took the card in trembling hands, her tears falling onto the ink. Joseph nodded, then turned to the staff. We're going to fix this. Every dollar stolen, every hour cut, every shred of dignity torn away. We restore it. Sandra's voice wavered. What happens now? Joseph inhaled deeply. Now, we rebuild. Together the right way. The payback 3 hours later, Joseph sat in his office with Michael, Sandra, and Thomas. The diner remained open, customers still eating, but the air felt lighter, cleansed. A notebook lay open on the desk, a pen in his hand, a promise on his lips. First step, the money. Everything Jennifer stole gets paid back. With interest. He slid 3 envelopes across the desk. Michael tore hers open. A check stared back at her. $6,740. Her hands shook. I can catch up on rent, buy food, take care of my kids. She collapsed into tears again, but this time they weren't born of despair. Sandra's envelope held $4,020. She clutched it to her chest, eyes closing in relief. Thomas opened his. $3,960. He simply stared, stunned into silence. That's every hour she stole from you over 18 months, Joseph explained, plus 15% interest. It doesn't erase what she did, but it's a start. Thomas finally spoke. How'd you calculate all this so fast? I didn't sleep, Joseph admitted. Went through every time card, called my accountant at 5 this morning, and it won't stop here. Everyone who worked under Jennifer gets a check. 14 people in total. $98,900. Sandra's brow furrowed. But what about the rest? The kickbacks, the payday loan schemes, the vendor scams? You said it was over 300,000. Joseph's jaw hardened. That's harder to pin down, but I've already hired a forensic accountant. Whatever we recover goes back to you. Michael wiped her eyes. Why are you doing this? Because it's right, and because I should have been here. I abandoned you. That ends today. The rebuild. Joseph flipped to a fresh page. Paying you back isn't enough. We have to make sure this never happens again, which means rebuilding New Dawn from the ground up. He looked at each of them. Step 1. Ownership. We're restructuring as a worker cooperative. Anyone here longer than a year becomes part owner. You'll hold equity, share profits, real power. Michael blinked. You mean we'd own part of this? Yes, Joseph said. While I was gone, you carried this place. Now you benefit. I'll keep 51%. The rest, 49%, gets divided based on tenure and hours. And every quarter, 40% of profits are distributed among employee owners. Thomas leaned forward. And if we make the wrong calls? Then we fail together, and we fix it together. Joseph turned another page. Step 2. An employee council. 5 elected members. Veto power over major changes. Hiring, firing managers, vendor contracts. I won't be able to fire anyone without council approval. If I'm wrong, the council can overrule me. Sandra frowned. You're giving us the power to vote against you? I'm giving you the power to protect yourselves. He wrote quickly. Step 3. Transparency. No more manual time cards. Cloud-based scheduling, posted 2 weeks in advance. Everyone can see their hours. Payroll auto-calculates overtime. No overrides without council sign-off. Michael leaned forward, scribbling notes. Step 4. I'm not leaving again. No more endless conferences, no speaking tours. I'll be here at least 30 hours a week, on the floor. With you. Thomas asked quietly, And the business side? I'm hiring a COO, Joseph said, but you'll interview them with me, and the council has to approve the hire. He looked each of them in the eye. I'm done being absent. He turned to the last page. Step 5. The Second Chance Program. We keep it, but we write it together. That means an anonymous complaint hotline, mandatory management training, trauma-informed supervision, and one iron rule. Sandra leaned in. Make it illegal to weaponize someone's past. No threats. No immigration status. No parole officers. No caseworkers. Automatic termination if anyone crosses that line. Joseph wrote the words in bold, then underlined them. Agreed. Vulnerability shield. That's what Joseph wrote at the top of the notebook page. The rule was simple. Anyone who weaponizes a worker's immigration status, criminal history, or personal struggle is gone immediately. No warnings. What else? He asked. They spent nearly 2 hours sketching the framework of a new future. Peer mentorship. Michael offered to guide the next single mother who joined the team. Fair scheduling. No more back-to-back close and open shifts unless approved, and those who chose them would be paid a premium. Profit-sharing transparency. Every dollar accounted for, every employee able to see the numbers. When the list was finished, Joseph leaned back. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the card he'd carried since he was a boy. His mother's recipe card. Jennifer even tampered with this, he said, voice catching. Cheap bread, margarine, no cinnamon, all to save a few dollars. He set the card on the desk. We're going back to the original, thick challah bread, real butter, cinnamon and nutmeg. If we have to raise the price, so be it. We're not compromising. His voice softened. My mama always told me, feed people with dignity. That's not just about food. It's about how we treat each other, how we run this place. Michael reached out, fingertips brushing the faded card. We'll honor it, she said. I promise. Joseph swallowed hard. unable to speak for a moment. Then he cleared his throat. Council elections are next week. I'll nominate the three of you, but it'll be decided by vote. Sandra smiled faintly. And if we don't win? Then I'll trust the ones who do. They rose to leave. At the door, Michael turned back. Mr. Turner, thank you. For coming back. For seeing us. He shook his head. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this works. When you don't have to choose between rent and food. When you feel safe? Michael's voice was barely above a whisper. For the first time in 18 months, I'm not afraid. The ripple. After they left, Joseph sat alone at his desk. His phone buzzed, a text from his daughter, Jessica. Dad, someone filmed the meeting. You're trending. People are calling you a hero. Joseph stared at the recipe card on the desk. Hero? No. He was just a man who had failed, learned, and was trying, finally, to do better. That would have to be enough. 6 weeks later. It was a Saturday morning when Michael walked into New Dawn with her two daughters. Not to work, to eat. Kathy and Tiffany skipped through the door ahead of her, laughter spilling into the room. Mommy, can we get a booth? Kathy asked. Any booth you want, baby. They chose the corner booth, the same one where Joseph had once sat in disguise, watching silently as everything fell apart. Sandra came over with crayons and coloring sheets. Good morning, ladies. What'll it be? French toast, Tiffany squealed. Please, Michael reminded gently. French toast, please, Tiffany corrected. Sandra grinned. The real recipe coming right up. She carried the ticket back to the kitchen. The smell of home Joseph was at the grill beside Thomas. 32 hours this week, Thomas said, cracking eggs into a bowl. First time since all of it happened. Michael's girls, Joseph thought. This is what it was all for. Thomas whisked the eggs with vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg. Joseph melted real butter in the pan. Thick slices of challah bread soaked in the mixture. The smell rose, warm, sweet, unmistakable. A smell the diner hadn't known in 18 months. You know what's different now? Thomas said. What? I don't dread coming in. Used to wake up with my stomach tied in knots. Now, I look forward to it. Joseph nodded, his throat too tight for words. The toast sizzled golden brown. Thomas dusted it with powdered sugar, added fresh strawberries, poured real maple syrup. Can I take it out? Joseph asked. Thomas smiled. It's your diner. No, Joseph corrected softly. It's ours. A new dawn. Joseph carried the plates himself to the corner booth. French toast for two beautiful young ladies. Kathy looked up, wide-eyed. You're Mr. Turner. Mommy says you're the reason she smiles now. Joseph's throat closed. He managed, Your mom's the reason this place is still standing. Michael's eyes glistened. She mouthed the words, Thank you. At the counter, Sandra was counting tips under the new system. Digital, transparent, untouchable. Her sister Rosa sat nearby, eating breakfast before starting her shift. 3 days a week, documented, safe. The diner smelled of cinnamon again, and dignity. The council had cast its first big vote. A legal defense fund. They pooled resources, hired an attorney, and secured protection for Rosa and 2 other workers facing immigration threats. Across the room, Sandra caught Joseph's eye. She smiled, this time without fear behind it. At table 6, a new waitress took her first solo order. Kesha, 26, a single mother. Michael had mentored her, steadying her hand and telling her the words that had saved her own spirit months earlier. You're safe here, I promise. And for the first time in a long while, the new hire didn't look afraid. The diner buzzed with life. Orders called, plates flying, the kitchen moving in perfect rhythm. At 10 a.m., Joseph's phone buzzed with a reminder. Employee council meeting, 11 a.m. Elections had wrapped 3 weeks earlier. Michael, Sandra, and Thomas had all won seats, joined by 2 veterans of the staff. Today's agenda, COO applications. Joseph had 1 vote, no more, no less. Democracy in action. By 10:30, Joseph untied his apron. I'm out. Meeting in half an hour. Thomas grinned. We've got it covered. Joseph paused at the corner booth. Kathy and Tiffany were there, faces dusted in powdered sugar, plates nearly licked clean. How was it? He asked. Best ever, Tiffany declared, her mouth sticky with syrup. Kathy nodded solemnly. It tastes like the pancakes Grandma used to make before she went to heaven. Michael's eyes filled. My mom used to make French toast every Saturday. I haven't been able to bring them out in I don't even know how long. Joseph smiled softly. Well, now you're an owner. Bring them whenever you like. Owners get the family discount. Michael laughed through tears. Exactly. The council room. At 11 sharp, 5 people sat around the table in what had once been Jennifer's office. Now it bore a fresh coat of paint and a sign above the door. Employee Council Room. Michael, chairing the meeting, opened her notebook. First item, COO applications. We've narrowed it to 3. Joseph, present the finalists. He did. The council grilled him with questions, debated openly. When it came time to vote, Joseph's top choice lost. 4-2, the council backed someone else. Michael raised her hand. All in favor? Every hand went up, including Joseph's. Motion carried. For the first time, New Dawn wasn't his alone, and he was glad for it. The promise kept later, Joseph passed through the kitchen window just in time to see Michael leaving with her daughters. Kathy skipped down the sidewalk. Tiffany clutched her mother's hand. Michael smiled, a wide, unguarded smile that hadn't been seen in years. Joseph looked back at the grill. Above it, framed on the wall, was his mother's recipe card. Feed people with dignity. After so many months of failure, he was finally living those words, not alone, but together. 1 year later, a Tuesday morning, the breakfast rush, Joseph manned the grill, cracking eggs into a bowl, whisking them with cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla. Thomas, now executive chef and proud part owner, stood beside him, training a new line cook. See that smell? Thomas said as the butter sizzled in the pan. That's what dignity smells like. The new hire nodded, scribbling notes. At the counter, Michael, now assistant GM and council chair, sat with Sandra, who'd been promoted to floor manager. They reviewed profit-sharing numbers. 40% of profits split among the employee owners, Michael explained. This quarter, that's $1,800 each. Sandra's grin widened. Rosa's going to cry. She's been saving for her citizenship fees. At the corner booth, a reporter from the Detroit Free Press interviewed Joseph. So, 1 year after exposing wage theft at your own diner, what's changed? Joseph gestured around the room. Employee retention, 96%. Revenue up 43%. Complaints? 0. The reporter scribbled furiously. And your secret? We stopped treating employees like expenses, Joseph said. Started treating them like partners. When people feel valued, they build something worth valuing. And Jennifer? The reporter asked. Joseph's jaw tightened. She's facing charges: wage theft, fraud, identity theft. Justice is catching up. Any regrets? Joseph paused, eyes flicking toward the grill where the recipe card hung. I regret not seeing it sooner, not being here when they needed me. But I'm grateful for the second chance to get it right. The interview ended. Joseph walked the floor, watching Michael laugh with a table of regulars, Thomas teaching with patience, Sandra counting tips fairly while Rosa wiped down a counter. His phone buzzed. He didn't check it right away. He looked around at the people who had rebuilt New Dawn with him, and for the first time in years, Joseph believed the diner's name. It truly was a new dawn. Joseph's phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. Proud of you, Dad. See you at dinner tonight. Wouldn't miss it. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and pulled out the one thing he always carried, the faded recipe card with his mother's handwriting. Feed people with dignity. He had failed that promise once. He wasn't going to fail it again. Michael had swallowed silence for 1.5 years. Sandra lived in fear for 14 months. Thomas kept his head down for 2 long years. Each one convinced that speaking up would cost them everything, that no one would believe them, that no one would listen. Until now. Breaking the silence. Maybe you've been there too, invisible in your own workplace, punished for asking questions, told to stay quiet when every part of you wanted to shout the truth. If you've carried that weight, you're not alone. Leave a comment below. Add your voice. Because thousands of people are reading this who have lived the same story, and they need to know they're not the only ones. The call stories like Michael's don't spark change by staying hidden. They change the world when ordinary people refuse to stay silent. Change doesn't come from waiting. It comes when someone finds the courage to speak, the courage to act, the courage to say, enough.